everybody. Welcome to our latest podcast. My name is John, and I'm not actually here today. I'm pre-recording this, but I am going to be leaving you in the capable hands of David and Mary. They are going to be talking about the subject of recycling around the home. It should be a good one. So, David, let's take it from there.
Thank you, John, very much. As you know, my name's David. I'm a Saha resident, and I'm here with Mary today. So, Mary, over to you.
Yeah, hi. It's a shame John's not with us, but really nice he did the intro for us. So, yes, Mary here, part of the Get Involved team, part of the Customer Insight team with Saha, and we are talking about recycling today, all sorts of reasons why. We've got climate change, we've got rising sea levels, we've got loads about plastic pollution coming at us in the media. At home, we've all got so many different colour bins now. I do tend to get a little bit confused. So I'm just wondering, David, I know you have researched a little bit and got a few facts about some of the reasons we might be needing to recycle things. So I'm wondering if you could give us a bit of an insight into that.
Yeah, sure. Funnily enough, John often accuses me of talking rubbish. Well, actually, today we are, aren't we?
Exactly.
Interestingly, the COP26 conference coming up in Scotland in November seems like a long way away, but it's only literally just over 3 months away. And one of the things that they are talking about, obviously, is climate change. And one of the things fueling climate change itself is our sort of voracious appetite as humanity for stripping the earth of its natural resources. And a lot of that, unfortunately, becomes waste. So I think what we need to think about is what can we do as individuals to perhaps mitigate something. Now, one of the things that I've come across, and you've talked about, the fact you've got lots of bins. Yeah, we have lots of bins, and it's a cause for confusion for a lot of people. What can I actually throw away? What shouldn't I throw away? If I'm going to throw something away, what bin does it go in, etc. So we've got lots and lots of facts that we can throw at people. But have you got any questions, Mary, before I start?
Well, it's not really a question, just a statement to say again that I think it's a really important thing to do. I'm starting to get the message certainly from the media, that this is a very important thing to do for the planet. So it'd be great to just get some of those facts around us and get to grips with what's actually happening to the planet and what we're doing to the planet, if you like, and why we need to mend our ways.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing we talk about is, when we look at waste, we look at the average household. And if you look at the government statistics, the average household in the UK, United Kingdom, which includes Northern Ireland, is 2.39 people, which is slightly odd, but there we are. And for every household in the UK, we produce more than 1 tonne, that's a metric tonne of waste every year. So put together, it actually comes to something like 31 million tonnes per year of waste, which, when you try and sort of put it into a picture, if you like, it's equivalent to the weight of 3.5 million double-decker buses. And if you put them end to end, it's a queue that would go around the world 2.5 times.
And that's just the UK?
That's just the UK.
Okay.
So, when you look at statistics like that, you think, wow, okay. Now, one of the things, again, that comes up is that as a nation, we are pretty lax, I think, in why we think recycling perhaps is not important. And in fact, we lag behind some of the European countries in the amount of stuff that we actually recycle. So I had a quick look to try and find out why. And I've come up with 5 reasons why people don't recycle. Well, the first one is, and I think I'm guilty of this, it's inconvenient. We have lots of waste disposal places, most councils will have a municipal tip or something, but it's not always close by. If you're a single person, an elderly person, someone who hasn't got their own transport, they can be actually quite inconvenient to get to. So virtually everything goes into our domestic waste bins. So there we are. No space. If you live in a one room bedsit or a very small flat, then actually space is at a premium. And now having to have different bins for segregating your waste can take up quite a lot of time. And they're a bit of an eyesore, really. I don't know how you feel about them, Mary,
Yeah,
but
I would completely agree with that actually, and you know, I mean, as a flat dweller, you know, I find it quite difficult. I have to hand over one of my kitchen cupboards to waste, basically. So yeah, it is a bit
okay.
inconvenient.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons. Another one that I've come across is people say, well, I'm actually not getting paid to recycle, so why the hell should I bother? Okay, we might come back to that one, but it's a bit sad, really, if people think they should be paid to do something I believe is a sort of an obligation for all of us. It doesn't make a difference. Now, this is one you hear an awful lot. I'm only one person. The little bit of waste that I chuck in the bin surely that's not going to make a difference, is it? Well, yes, it will, because if you multiply that by, you know, the other 1.39 people in your household, that adds up to quite a lot of it doesn't make a difference. The other thing, landfill sites, they're full up. So again, if I chuck stuff away, I'm just adding to the problem. So perhaps I shouldn't do it. But the fact is that refusing to recycle, which is an eco-friendly sort of part of our lifestyle, if we don't live by that, we'll end up creating a huge problem, or an even bigger problem, that will speed up environmental decline. And it will actually leave us in dire conditions much sooner. So, yeah, it does make a difference. Too hard. Some people can't be bothered to recycle because they think it's hard. We know no one gets what stuff do you put in what bin right first time, but it doesn't mean we should put it behind us. Things like, well, we know paper products will go in the paper bin, but that's okay. That's nice and simple. Food waste, that will go in a general bin, or if you can compost stuff, it will go in our compost bin if you've got one. The real big sticking point comes with plastics, and I know you've mentioned this to me before, Mary. You go, well, this is plastic. It's all plastic, so all plastic's recyclable, isn't it?
Yeah,
Well,
that's right. Yeah.
well, unfortunately, it isn't, because there are sort of 7 main types of plastic that are in general use, and only a couple of them are actually easily recyclable. The others get more difficult to recycle as they go. And you may well have noticed on plastic packaging there's often a number, and it'll go from 1 to 7, and generally 1 will be something like PET, which is polyethylene terephthalate, which is widely recyclable. Now, and you go, what the? Say that again?
Yeah.
PET, it comes in lots of different guises, and it's widely used in food packaging, etc. The other one is high density polyethylene, which has got uses in construction and household goods, etc., and car industry, and is easily recyclable. But then we get things like PVC and polypropylene and styrofoam, or polystyrene as we call it in this country, which actually are very difficult to dispose of and generally will go in landfill. Things like disposable coffee cups, plastic cutlery, some sort of plastic bags and things like that. They are difficult to dispose of. So we put them in a landfill, but unfortunately they don't always stay in the landfill, and very often will end up in rivers and ponds and lakes, and it ultimately might end up in the ocean. And I don't know if everybody's heard of it, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, which actually now is estimated to cover an area twice the size of France.
Oh my good grief.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard of it actually, David, but yeah, that's a large area, isn't it? I was just while you were, when you were listing out the 5 reasons people don't recycle, I'm just thinking, I've bought into those reasons many times, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Can't be, nobody's doing anything. Why should I bother? This, that, and the other. I don't suppose you might have, or can you give us some reasons why we should recycle? Because I think I'm starting to need some positive.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Some positive reasons why I'm doing this, David. Now.
Okay, well, let's go for the first one then. Saving energy. Well, we all like to save energy. The world is using more and more energy every day, and recycling goods is actually much more energy efficient than producing stuff from new. For example, your smartphone that virtually everybody has now can contain up to 42 different materials, which will include plastic, it will include heavy metals, precious metals like gold and platinum and stuff like that. And to produce those goods from new is actually really, really energy intensive. So by reusing plastics, by reusing metals, we're actually using less energy, and we're using less natural resources. We're currently using probably about 75% more of our Earth's resources than is sustainable. So when we think about that, it's not going to last very long. Okay, so save energy, good. Reduce landfill use. Well, we've talked about, waste tips and things like that we've got. If we stop chucking stuff into it, they won't obviously get any bigger, and that land could be returned back to nature, which I think is good in any sense. Nobody really wants to live next to a landfill, do they? Let's face it.
No, definitely not. No.
Protecting wildlife. Now, I'm an advocate of the Worldwide Fund for Nature, and we're quite happily depleting the world of wildlife. So anything we can do to stop things like Pacific turtles getting tied up in fishing nets and bits of waste plastic, to stop dolphins dying because they drown being caught up in nets. Anything we can do to prevent that, I think is good in my books. Okay, so good for the economy. Well, recycling isn't just for the environment, it's also good for the economy. Producing goods using recycled materials means less waste and less pollution, whilst also consuming less water and less energy. We might talk a little bit about water in a minute, because a fact for you that the Earth is actually probably about 75% water, and the rest is land. However, out of that percentage of water, actually only about 3% is fresh water that we can actually drink. So that's interesting to find out. And out of that 3%, only around about 1 to 1.2% is actually readily available for us to drink. Now, the rest of it's sort of tied up in permafrost and the Arctic and floats around in the atmosphere. Now, if you think about it, with the way humanity's exploding, if you like, in terms of population, it won't be very long before we actually run out of the one resource that we can't afford to run out of, which is water.
Yeah. It's that's pretty scary, isn't it?
Yeah. So there we are. There's an awful lot of reasons why we shouldn't waste water, and the fact there's very little of it is one good reason for me. Okay, and the last, obviously, of course, is if we recycle, we're doing our bit to fight climate change. And, when I think about my kids and their future generations, what are we actually leaving them at the moment? It looks pretty bleak, but it's not irreversible if we all do our bit. So there we are. There's our 5 reasons why we should recycle.
Brilliant. I think those reasons are so important. Just wanted to pick up particularly on the protection of wildlife, because I think it isn't only us that we are disadvantaging, if you like. It's innocent wildlife. And I think we really, like you say, for the future, for wildlife, for our children, our grandchildren. It's really important to get to grips with it.
Yeah. A couple of statistics as well, going back to water, because I want to go back to talking about what plastics we can throw away and how we should throw them away, etc. With water, did you know, Mary, for example, that it takes 300 litres of water to grow vegetables, for example? It will take 1,000 litres of water to grow a fruit bush. Coffee beans, 21,000 litres of water to grow a coffee bean plant.
Yeah.
A car in manufacture will take 67,500 litres of water. Making a pair of jeans will cost us 8,000 litres of water. Now we're thinking, we've just said that most of the planet is water, but we're not using seawater. We are using fresh water to make all these things. And for example, with food, we are exceedingly wasteful in the developed world with the amount of food that we throw away. So, we've just spent, 300 litres of water growing vegetables and our, say, potatoes or something like that. And most of it ends up in landfill.
Yeah, it's terrible, isn't it? I hadn't even thought about the amount of water that we use in manufacturing or growing. When I think most of us, when we think of water, we think about drinking it. We don't think about what is used in manufacturing, or indeed how much is used in growing, or, I guess the same is true of animals and what they drink for us to consume, and then for us, as you say, to end up wasting it and putting it into landfill sites and so on. It's just,
It seems a bit criminal to me, but
it does. Yeah.
I have to hold my hand up and say, I'm as guilty as anybody else, I think, at the moment of not being as good as I could be. So, from today, I'm going to put my hand on my heart and say, I pledge to be better at recycling than I have been.
Yeah. And I think, having looked into this particular topic, David, and, I know that you sent both John and I quite a lot of facts through. And I just wanted to share with everybody that at the bottom of it, you said there's loads more, but I was getting too despondent and depressed to keep gathering facts. And I think, I'm totally with you on that. And I think I too would want to pledge that, I am going to try hard to do this, because I think, some of the statistics and facts we've been talking about, it's just too much. It's just far too much. And we need to, as individuals, play our part, I think. So.
Yeah, you're right. And, going back to what I said just now, one of the things that causes confusion for people in recycling, and it's something that we can do as an individual, is to think about, plastic items. Funnily enough, I bought some crepes or pancakes for us uninitiated English that were supposed to be chocolate filled, and they came in a plastic outer container, and then each one was individually wrapped in plastic. So I thought, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this apart and see how much plastic there. And there was 0.75 of a square metre of plastic just wrapping these things up. And what am I going to do with that plastic? Well, it goes in the bin. It's as simple as that. Now, the problem is that there are some plastics, I've said, that we can throw away, some we can't. Certain items, such as plastic bags, for example, we shouldn't really put those in the recycling bin. Now, I think that the recyclers need to sort this out, because it says it can jam up the recycling equipment. And obviously, we don't know what's been in the plastic bags. Now, if there's grease and stuff like that, it can actually contaminate the recycled plastic. So we shouldn't do it. Things like your take-out food containers, your pizza delivery boxes, they could actually have leftover food remnants or grease. And again, that can contaminate the recyclable plastics. So even if they're made from recyclable materials, they actually can't be recycled, which is a bit of a shame.
It's interesting, actually, because one of the things that I always try to do is to wash out all of the containers that I put in. I mean, that's mainly, in actual fact, for me, that's mainly so they don't smell in my bin.
Yeah.
But funnily enough, what we were just talking about with the water is interesting, because I'm using water to wash out my plastics.
Absolutely. So, here we go on the merry-go-round. Yeah.
Yes.
Another fantastic fact for you: plastic bags. Did you know that we produce throughout the world 5 trillion plastic bags per year, and that equates to 160,000 plastic bags produced per second. The big problem with them is that some of the plastics they're made from will take up to 1,000 years to degrade in a landfill site. And, that's when you start to get a little bit depressed, and you think, oh, my goodness sake, But reuse. And if you are going to dispose of them, well, you have to sometimes dispose of them properly, because we don't want them being blown around and ending up in the rivers and then eventually out to sea.
Yeah. And I guess there's so much, it would be quite good to maybe have some facts on what happens with our recycling. Like the positive side of recycling is that our hope is when we put all our plastics, I mean, I don't know whether you've got them in your area, but we've now got blue bags that we put all our plastic in. It'd be quite nice to know what happens with that, or what good does it do if I compost my food rubbish?
Yeah, again, I mean, composting is great if you can do it. And obviously I urge people to compost as much as they can. Even if you don't use it, there may well be friends and neighbours or, local sort of allotment holder groups that would love to take your compost. So it may be worth looking at there. In terms of recycling plastic, we produce something like 500 million plastic water bottles every year, so we can have fresh water, which is great. But what happens to it? Well, there's usually a 7-stage process. That wasn't easy to say. A 7-stage process, which includes washing, for example, to get rid of contents and greases and things like that. And then depending on the type of plastic, they're subjected to different types of degrading back to their base materials. What happens then? Well, once they're actually degraded down, then they're reused and, make things like, for example, more pipes to carry fresh water, which is great for using in kids' play equipment, etc. So, yeah, great. Let's do it. Let's recycle and recycle.
Yeah. I think there's some facts about 5 plastic bottle creates enough insulating fibre to fill a ski jacket.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm just pulling them out of the list that you sent over to me, actually, David, which is great. I mean, cars being recycled. In fact, as much as 80% of the things we throw away could be recycled and reused.
One of the big problems that we've got is we've gone into almost like a throwaway economy. And I was looking up for things like planned obsolescence, which sounds a bit strange, but we blame manufacturers and say, well, things, they don't make them like they used to. I bought this X, Y, Z and it only lasted a couple of weeks, whereas my granddad had one that lasted him 30 years, and a lot of that is blamed on manufacturers, but it's also down to us, I think, because I know people, and I'm probably guilty of it myself to a certain degree. We think I've got to have the latest and greatest and whizziest item that I can. New phone, new TV, this one does more than this, and so I'll have that instead. So, yeah, we are guilty of things. Did you know that recycling a single aluminium can save enough energy to power your TV for up to 3 hours?
I did not know that, but I am glad that I do. And I am glad that I do know that now, because I think it's a very positive message that if we recycle, it can actually help us in so many ways in the future, with green energy, as you said, as we were saying before, with, all of that the climate change issues, how we get our energy. So I think it's really important. And I suppose, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I think for me, because it all looks a bit doomy and gloomy, but I think there is cause for hope, and that hope lies within us, really, because the more that we can do as individuals will create a larger group doing as much as they can to help the planet. So let's recycle. If you're not sure about what you can and can't recycle and where it should or shouldn't go, there's absolutely oodles of information on the internet. Your local council will send you out leaflets, etc., if you ask them for information. But I think it's like most things in life, it's taking that first step that is the most difficult. So I think for me, I urge people, let's take the first steps to recycling. Do even, throwing away one plastic bottle in the right place and making sure it goes to be recycled in the right place is better than not doing it at all.
Absolutely, David. I think you've summed it up brilliantly, and just let's keep on recycling, and get the information if you need it.
Well, that appears to be it for another podcast. I hope you all enjoyed the subject around recycling. I'm sure we've covered most of what we could possibly do. And now it's just for me to say goodbye to everybody, and I'll leave it for David and Mary to say their goodbyes. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for that, John. Yes, I hope everybody did enjoy the conversation. Look forward to seeing you next time, and just want to take this opportunity as well to promote some of our next podcasts, which will be on safeguarding.
Thanks everybody for listening. It's goodbye from me. See you next time.